ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to North Shore Live Cooper's Corner. This is May the 29th, 2019. This is the last Wednesday in May, and we bring to you the most important program that we've had in May. I hope that all of you had a wonderful time on Memorial Day, considering what Memorial Day was and is, but that families should get together and be together as one, and not forget those that gave the most and the utmost to the service of their country. And that is Memorial Day, and flags should have been flown all over, and I know we did fly ours. And this evening we have a very special guest, Dr. Baer, Dr. John Baer, and his two guests that he brought with from Lovell. And this evening's program is the psychological research on PTSD, TBI, traumatic brain injury, and moral injury in the 21st century. And our guests are Dan Perez, a Iraq veteran,
Afghan,
and Colonel Chris O'Donnell, retired. Marines, did I get that?
You got it. That's it.
Marine. Oh, once a Marine, always a Marine. And Dan,
I'm an Army veteran.
You're Army. Okay, well, we like Army too. I'm Navy family, but that's all right. So this evening's program is going to be very important, very informational, and we need your attention on a few items that may affect you or one of your loved ones. So Dr. Baer will be explaining that. It's very important that we all listen to what he has to say, and to the other two gentlemen, because they as well really have great input into this, because it's for the veterans. So without any further ado, pardon me, let me get this started with Dr. Baer. Welcome to the program. It's been a while.
Nice. Good to see you.
Good to see you always.
Bev, I want to say to you, thank you for inviting us. And I want to say to your viewing audience, on behalf of Captain Buckley, the director of the Federal Health Center, on behalf of Dr. Kayer, the head of research, and Dr. Peterson and Dr. Martin, all of us involved in PTSD work, we are so pleased to have this opportunity to be here. And I want to say to your viewing audience, what a great opportunity to speak with you. We know that throughout Highland Park and throughout this area there are patriotic families, there are veterans, there are military families, families who've had veterans, whether it's this generation or 2 generations ago. And we want to let you know that we invite you to become familiar with the Federal Health Center. We're a unique operation in the country. We've combined Navy and with the VA, and we have active duty and vets being served together. And we want to invite your viewing audience to get to know the Federal Health Center. Veterans and veterans' families, you are welcome. We want you to be at ease coming up to Federal Health and know that we have service for you, we have medications for you, and we have veterans' family service. So we want to reach out and say the Lovell Federal Health Center is open and ready for veterans and their families.
Dr. Baer, I need to let you know that a lot of these veterans and their families are quite hesitant to participate.
Yeah.
And that is a very big step to take. I know you offer open arm policy, but they really are very hesitant. They don't know whether this puts a black mark on their name. They don't know if they are paying for anything that they cannot afford, and they don't know if your mode of medical help will help them. So how do you go from there?
Good news in our times. We have young politicians, Republican and Democrat, who served our country. They are reinvigorating the national scene with a commitment to veterans and to service to our country. And what I say to your viewing audience is give us a try. We are proud of our people. We have staff who their hearts and their very special talents are into providing the best service for veterans. Give us a try.
Is there cost involved? You know, that's a big, that's a big question that a lot of people say. Well, you know, we know that they mean well, but it might cost us, and we really can't afford what a medical, application or, a medical, division somewhere between physical health and mental health will be. Maybe they're footing a very large bill with some physical health right now. Mental health, they know they have some difficulties, but how are they going to foot the bill for that too?
Well, as you know, veterans service is in large part covered. The VA is if you're a high-income person, you pay a little bit more. We have some sliding scale, but for most veterans, the service is free. Our veterans earned it. It's guaranteed to them, and so the VA is doing well around the country, not just our VA.
Okay.
But the VA's doing very well in terms of comparable care with private facilities. And that's been shown in various studies that the VA is souped up. Our medical work, our psychological work, our post-traumatic stress disorder work, our work with addictions, we score very high in our rankings, and we don't charge for the most part. And the only way that you find out is to come in.
So no one is turned away? I mean,
no.
If they come and they
no one is turned away.
Come for help, but I can't afford to pay. And when I was overseas, I unfortunately became addicted to some medication or some opioid or whatever. Can you help me with that? Can you help me with this? I'm having nightmares. Can you help me? And what's the cost? What would you say?
I would say the cost is a phone call and a drive up to the hospital. Come on in, call us, arrange for a screening. To meet our people. This is not a private hospital. This is government operation to serve veterans.
And they're not alone. There are other veterans in there that are suffering probably worse than those coming in the door.
Abraham Lincoln got it right. We have a great VA system to serve veterans and their families, those who borne the burden of the war.
See, okay.
I can give you an example of a fellow ran into a vet from the Vietnam era, and would it be applicable to Iraqi era, same thing. And he said, "Gee, I'm just worried about going into the VA. I don't know what to do."
See.
And so I said, "Well, you ought to go, and if necessary, I'll take you up there." He said, "Well, I don't know anyway." So only a couple days or a week went by, and I saw him again, and I said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" He said, "Well, I'm available." I said, "Come on, I'll drive you." So I put him in the car and I drove him up to Lovell. And it was just fascinating. He had been dealing with medical issues he was really worried about because it's been a long break between time of active duty and being released to civilian. So we went into the registration area. I introduced them there to the people. He sat down. And they asked all these questions, etc. And I'm sitting there listening because I know this fellow from history. And when we finished, I said, "Print out what you just wrote down." So I had him print out so that he could double check, so that if there's an error, in other words, if his name is John P. Smith and they put in John G. Smith or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
So that there's no mistake and that the DD 214 number and that sort of thing, he brought that with him. And they took the information. There was an error in the entry, as you can imagine.
Oh,
Sometimes
wow.
that happens.
Sure.
And so we ended up going, I put him in the car, we took him back to Evanston. Well, it turns out, about a week and a half later, he said, gee, I talked to the doctor, I've gone in and seen him, he's got on the schedule, they got him in a program, and he's just like he died and gone to heaven. And he had been struggling with some issues that were, I don't want to go into the issues were, but they were clearly something that needed to be had attention given.
Does he have a family?
Yes.
So the family also must have been struggling with this because he's having problems.
Well, I was going to ask him why he had all these welts on his head, and he said his wife keeps beating him up because he doesn't go to the VA.
Oh, the VA. Yeah, we should hear from Dan. So Dan, this is your baby up here.
It is. That is my study, which I got interested in being a veteran myself. Returned home from Afghanistan in 2005. Really struggled, I think, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
with wanting to go to the VA. I'd heard things in the news,
Yep.
wasn't sure if it was
This is-
something that would be right for me. And being young at the time, I was 22 years old, just getting out of the military, really not thinking that the VA was right for me. But I gave it a chance, like Dr. Bear said, and it was a wonderful experience. I lived in a very rural area, and I was lucky to have a clinic out by me. They have hospitals have
interesting.
clinics out in rural areas, which was very helpful for
Wow.
me. And I eventually started working for the clinic. I would drive veterans from that clinic up to the Hines Hospital for appointments. So they offered free rides.
But how did you hear about this? I mean, you must have known about VA hospital, and I know there was a lot of not very flattering information regarding VA hospitals around the country. But how did you know to go to that specific one, or even to contact that?
I was lucky in my area. We had a veteran service representative who I went to just to see what kind of benefits I could get, what was available for me, and he told me about the clinic that was no more than a mile from my house. And then I went in, asked what the process is, what that looks like, and everyone was very helpful and very informative, got me signed up for services right away. Both medical and for mental health, because I was struggling a bit with mental health, diagnosed with PTSD almost immediately in 2005. And the services that I received were state of the art. I had a counselor both at the clinic and also through telemental health. So on a camera screen, I could talk to my psychiatrist who was up in Chicago.
How long were you in the service?
4 years.
Oh, 4 years, okay. Well, that's long enough to do damage. So you then reached out to the VA for assistance, and then in turn volunteered to help others reach their helpfulness for medical and psychological. And you drove them. Well, Hines is pretty big.
Yes.
Hines, very, very big VA in Maywood. Very. So you then enrolled in school to be able to do this.
Yes, I had a very, I felt like I wanted to give back to the veteran population. And I knew that it really helped for me, especially with mental health. So I enrolled in a master's degree program, and I completed that in 3 years, but I felt like that wasn't enough. I wanted to become a doctor and enrolled in the doctoral program.
Okay.
And that's through my training at Lovell. That's how I got in contact with Dr. Bear, found this new passion in research, and I'm really looking forward to continuing along with Dr. Bear and all the rest of the research team.
If I ask you a little bit about this, this huge, beautiful board that you've got here, what can you tell me about it?
Mainly what I'm interested in my research is this idea of moral injury being a violation of what one determines what is right. So what's right to one person can differ from what's right to another person. So I'm really interested in one's moral foundation, what has been built up since childbirth until adulthood, and how being exposed to moral injury, having a morally injurious event happen to them or be witness to, how that alters or changes their moral foundations, how their worldview changes, how they view others and relationships.
So this was your thesis? Is that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That was, how many, is this just from your perspective, or did you check other people out, or have?
I used a lot of other research, a lot of literature on moral injury and moral foundations. Did get some help from some of those researchers. Dr. Baer has been great in giving me his input.
He's a regular Encyclopedia Britannica, I'm telling you, very good, okay.
Yeah. And my chair, Dr. Larson, was great in helping me, especially in understanding moral injury and what that is and the differences between moral injury and PTSD.
Did you connect with anyone in particular that you felt was, I don't want to say a study, but that you were able to see progress from point A to point B, and were they hospitalized, or were they, it's like the walking wounded, or, how do they, fit back into civilized society, without bringing in the issue of wartime and overseas?
Sure. From my perspective as working with veterans, I have had work with a veteran who was struggling with, he was diagnosed with PTSD, and I worked with him extensively and found that a lot of his symptoms seemed to stem more from moral injury, and the differentiating between PTSD and moral injury in his case was a little difficult at first, but when we started to address the transgression that he personally felt and addressing those in a more holistic and experiential way, it started to really lessen his symptoms of PTSD, the hypervigilance and depression that is very common in PTSD. So I really think that research like this and that Dr. Baer and the team have been doing is really going to sort of go through this with a fine-tooth comb and really narrow down interventions that are really impactful, that can really help veterans.
So you're more student. I mean, you're a student studying this situation, and you're like the fledgling that Dr. Baer is able to, put his wing over to be able to bring information to you. Is there, Dr. Baer, anything new that we've learned from this study in particular?
Absolutely.
And helpful? Anything new and helpful?
For your viewing audience, the diagnosis of PTSD has been evolving, and we're getting more and more specificity.
Okay.
When I was working at Evanston Hospital for 16 years, and we had firemen come in out of the fire at Rust-Oleum Paint, and he was flashing back to Vietnam, nobody in the emergency room knew what to do, because this is like 1978 with the Rust-Oleum Paint fire. And in that time, we didn't have even a diagnostic and statistical manual talking about PTSD. We've come a long way. PTSD is now solidly in the diagnostic and statistical manual, but they haven't included traumatic brain injury and moral injury. And what is a clinician, what you find out is that so many of the vets, it's not just the trauma of death or the trauma of having loss of friends, which are extreme, but it's the trauma of witnessing and then feeling some condemnation, some guilt, some shame.
Sure.
I could have done more, I should have done more. And so those messages really are a larger part of PTSD than the trauma itself. And then we have, especially in this recent Afghan in Iraq, so many of the injuries come from roadside bombs and explosions. So what we know is that there's much more traumatic brain injury, little bits of traumatic brain injury and big traumatic brain injury. And you know what? After World War II and Vietnam, these things were not diagnosed. So some of the other research studies we have going,
back.
it's all about helping more specific diagnosis and more specific treatment, so that people who are being left in addiction, people who are being left in depression, people who are being left without family responding to them, that family can know, we know more now, all across the country. And in the last 5 years, there's been a number of increases in publications on moral injury. We just happen to have a very active team, and we're adding to that important cutting-edge knowledge about moral injury, traumatic brain injury, so that we can engage people and give them a more accurate treatment. It saves people suffering. It saves the country money. It's about time.
Oh, absolutely. You know, what is very disturbing and is when you hear of how many veterans, unfortunately, are committing suicide because they don't know how to handle the situation, and they're up to, I think, 22 a day or 23 a day that commit suicide, and totally it can be helped. They could have been helped. That's a terrible moral injury that I feel that they could have helped. Someone could have helped. Why is this being disquieted? You know, maybe they get one line in the newspaper, or maybe someone makes a mention of it, but then they pass it by. They don't say, if there's someone in your family that is suffering from this, don't hesitate to call this number, or if you give them direction, the viewers will respond. Give them direction. Tell them where to go, what clinic to go to. Tell them to go into their nearest hospital. Tell them you've got a veteran. The hospital doesn't even have a listing. When you go to register in the hospital, in the emergency room, it says male, female, married, unmarried, widowed, widower, whatever, divorce. But it doesn't have on there, are you a veteran? It doesn't have anything on there. So when the emergency doctors take a look at it, they just figure some guy did an overdose or whatever, and you know, they'll treat him like that. But a veteran is another breed of humanity, those that went into war to fight. Why isn't there an active box on the admissions records for veteran or active military? Something. We are who we are. Why aren't we recognized?
I believe that many of the private hospitals have a solid understanding about veterans, but there may be some that don't. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Any healthcare person, whether it's a hospital or a clinic, they ought to know that veterans have a unique and distinct experience, and that we have an obligation to reach out to them and to know from the get-go that veterans have been through a whole different experience. Most of us with privilege have not had to give up our education and give up our years of our generative
Youth,
early
that's right,
life, youth. But those that have, we'd have to demand of ourselves. And you're saying that it's a moral issue in the country.
Absolutely it is.
It absolutely is, and we all agree. I want to tell you that if you go to Level, any of the staff will tell you that it's a moral issue, and we are there for veterans.
Well, we know that. We know if there's a veteran that goes and walks through the doors, he will be accommodated and cared for. My husband is a Shriner, and many times, you know, children need help and whatever, and they don't have the ability financially or any other way to help their child. And without hesitation, I mean, I was a friend of mine, and her little boy was born with a malady of the hand, and she didn't know what to do. She said, "Gee, Bev, we can't afford surgery. We don't know what to do. He's going to be like this all his life." I said, "Don't worry about it." I said, "I'll let me tell my husband, and we'll contact the Shriners, and you'll be cared for." And sure enough, and I'm telling you, this was 40 some years ago, big time. And we took care of that little boy. And then there was another friend whose daughter had a problem, and we took care of that. All you need to do is ask. You need to ask someone, what can I do? Where do I go? I need help and attention. But there's a stigma attached to when you say the word, I need help. The people kind of back away from you because they don't want to get involved. I mean, they think that they're going to get pulled into this and have to, give financial assistance to whatever. But there are organizations that do this specifically. The Danny Thomas, I mean, it's, children who are suffering from cancer, they pay nothing. Their families pay nothing. They're cared for. They're taken care of. And I think for all intents and purposes, we need to tell the public out there, if you have a member of your family suffering with any of these maladies, PTSD or TBI or any kind of moral injury, and they're a veteran and from whatever theater of war they were in, please contact your nearest clinic or contact the Lovell VA or Hines VA and get some assistance. It is well worth a phone call to get that direction and ask for help and assistance than to lose them in a unnecessary suicide because you didn't know what to do or how to do whatever. I think also an idea of transportation is needed. What if they don't have the ability of transportation? Then what do they do? I mean, does the VA have like a bus or a car or something to go out to fetch these veterans?
We do within a certain perimeter.
This
And
is
we
the first time I knew about this.
And
Really?
we also have a van that goes back and forth to Hines and up to Milwaukee.
Wow, did
Zablocki.
not know, did
Yeah.
not
We have a
know.
bus that comes up from Evanston,
Did not know
brings them
that
up.
either.
and then there's a provision within the FHCC, Federal Healthcare Center, where if vets need to get a ride from A to B, in other words, if they're at home
Yeah.
and they need to get a shuttle back to the hospital, there's that provision.
So Colonel, how did they know this? Do they have to ask
Well, it's
their-
interesting, that subject comes up, and I happen to be involved with the Stakeholders Committee at Lovell, and that subject comes up, and so we give them the phone numbers and that sort of thing as to how to go do that. I don't know the number right off the tip of my head.
All right.
But the answer is, if they are registered with the hospital and they call in, there's help that would give that, there'd be guidance as to how to
Yeah.
get that done.
Dr. Baird, do you have a number that you could give out to the viewers of the Lovell Hospital, just for them to call?
Absolutely. The VA number is 847-688-1900. And you can call and ask for me. Say
And
that you were watching Cooper's Corner and say you asked for Dr. Bear, and I will call you back within 24 hours.
give them the number again, please.
847-688-1900.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Beth, if I may,
Sure,
I would just want to expand to the viewer audience
absolutely,
that
you got it.
a lot of trauma doesn't happen in combat. A lot of trauma happens,
When they get-
assault in the barracks, trauma happens in basic training. People get hurt in lots of ways. So that don't feel we're all about combat vets. We're about veterans. We have special programs for combat vets. We have special programs for military sexual assault. I've been leading a group myself for victims of military sexual assault or sexual assault for years.
Okay.
And we have Delia Avilia, who has a very specialized program. So we invite your viewer audience to know that we have specialists in all kinds of trauma at Level Federal Health. So please come and get treatment. Please look out for your benefits that you may be due.
Benefits, yeah.
Medications you can get, medical treatment, psychological, psychiatric treatment. Let yourself trust the government, trust the VA, and come and see what we can do to help you.
I'd like to talk about the subject of what is being done
Yeah.
in the medical profession. We've made liaison with the Chicago Medical School, and how that came about is the dean of the school, Dr. Jim Record, had come to one of our stakeholders meeting, and the auspices he came, as I asked him to come and talk about what's the training that a student would go through to become a doctor. So he'd say pharmacology, blah, blah, blah. And the last one was interpersonal skills. And so they needed help to improve the interpersonal skills
For medical student training.
for medical
Yeah,
school
student,
training.
Okay.
So he said, yes, we could use some help there. So I put my hand up, and Lenny Flume, the other co-chair, said, we'll work with you. We'll put a strike force together here, and you get your staff over there. We'll have some meetings. We had several meetings, and so what's happened now, which is really very, very exciting, is that we put 3 or 4 vets on a panel. We have 50 students in a room. So we have 4 panels going on, so we have 200 students there. And we have an interchange that goes on to describe and have the vets describe how did you make your transition from military life to what was the medical treatment that you got, et cetera. And the concept is, what's the difference between civilian medicine and military medicine? And it has a lot to do with anything from neuropathy of the foot to TBI or PTSD, or it could be diabetes or whatever. But I've been very impressed with how the medical profession, in this circumstance, Chicago Medical School, this program that we've put together is now part of the curriculum. I mean, this is, it's marvelous. When we first started, this is pretty exciting. When we first started, I went to a meeting, and I said I want it, because I had to get a cadre of men to be willing to do this. And I said, I'm going to ask anybody in here willing to volunteer. I'm going to tell you right now, we're not going to pay you. I'm not going to transfer there. I'm not going to feed you. I'm not going to do anything with you, but I need you to come because I need you to be the teacher. So I said, anybody willing to do, we're going to connect up with the medical school. 18 hands went in the air.
Wow.
I remember because I counted 18 hands. Wow, I was hoping to get 5, right? Since that time, I got about 56 names on the list.
It's terrific.
Because other people have heard about this, and so they want to participate. So this is what I was telling Dan earlier, is that I've seen the transition where people come, these men come in, the vets come to these panels, and we ask them to be the teacher. So they're talking to the students, and the students are sitting like this.
Oh yeah, they're listening,
just-
hearing something new.
They're right in the
Okay.
middle of it.
Yeah.
But the transformation that I've seen is not this. I'm looking at the vets. Dr. Bayi, who was my counterpart at the medical school, he says the transformation in the school is that all the medical school students want to go to these panels.
Wow.
And now I've got vets trying to get onto those panels as well. But the advantage that I see is that the confidence, the familiarity, the ability to stand and speak, to be designated that you're the teacher to explain what's happening. The change in the behavior of the vet is just marvelous. Just marvelous.
Well, I would imagine because someone's listening to them for a change. They're not being talked to. They are being included and being listened to.
And one of the things that Dr. B, it was his idea, he's one that focused on it, is that we're asking the students to be the student and the vet to be the teacher.
Yeah.
So if I asked you to be the teacher, you're going to kind of stepped up to, and they all would step up to it.
Yeah. That's terrific.
And what I find is there's some vets who would be over a level of some meetings, and some of these men would be just kind of, they wouldn't look at you and wouldn't give you the eye contact.
Yeah.
They get in these panels and they stand up and they look right at the students and they're speaking what they're learning, what they've learned about themselves,
Yeah.
what the medical treatment they receive, the benefits that they receive, and the students are asking questions. I've been very, very impressed with how, at least I've seen within the medical school that we've dealt with at Chicago Medical School, it's a terrific opportunity for the vets to participate. My position when we started this was, I marketed this on the basis of this is a chance for you to give back.
Sure.
That was what I proposed. They took that and turned that around and said, no, this is a chance for us to influence the next generation of doctors.
And it's very cathartic for the veteran as well.
That's the point.
Because they can sometimes, if they feel they don't want to go there, they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to relate to it, it's too hurtful, they can't. But once they start talking, and then they tell it again, and you have another meeting and they tell it again, and then you have another meeting. So it's a
She's got
matter
it.
of as many times as you have to tell it, they are able to relate that, which lessens their anxiety and makes them, pretty much human. What can I say? We're, connecting.
I'm
We're
with you.
connecting.
We started with 18. I got 56 now. I thought that's pretty good.
This is outstanding.
Conceptually, and by the way, this isn't for everybody. So for your viewing audience, when people come up to the Federal Health Center, we start with where you are. We help you, and we help your family where you are. Now, people who stick with us, many of the vets and the young docs, they move ahead, and then they can take on these additional responsibilities. Our
Sure.
veterans are full of incredible life experience.
Oh.
Many of them are underemployed,
That's
under-recognized,
right.
have not been fully respected.
This is true.
And if we can help them in various ways, not only to deal with their very unique personal situation, but then later to take on greater roles, they become inspiring for
Well-
as teachers and inspiring in leadership roles.
They say babies don't come with instructions, but the vets do. They come with a whole thing of instructions, don't
they've
do
had-
this, do this,
Yes,
So,
they've had this.
I
they've
find
had
that many of these men have this hidden leadership
Yes.
ability that and I think Dr. Baer focuses on that. And when you put them in front of a classroom, the circumstance we have, they are able to handle that. It's almost as though they've gone from, PFC to Lance Corporal to Corporal or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
and they're able, Sergeant or Tech Sergeant or whatever. So I find that the environment that we're setting here is to enable the vet to share his story and not be criticized over it, and allow himself to be exposed and have questions asked of him or her, and for them to feel that element of confidence and yes, I can do this. I mean, it's been very, very exciting. There's another program we run over at the medical school, and that has to do with helping the docs interview. So first time I meet you, I don't really know anything about you. So what's the role? How do I get to talk to someone? And for somebody coming off of active duty, they're kind of shy and they don't know exactly what to do. And that transition going from, I just remember my own self coming off active duty. When you come off, you kind of, I'll be okay. Just
yeah.
takes me a while to get wound up.
Well, I would imagine, although I've not been in the military, but we have military in the family, that, you don't know really how to connect because you give the sergeant more, respect than just saying hi, Bill, or something. Do you call him sergeant? Are we on the same level, or are you still military level? So that might be something interesting. If it's a first name basis without having, sergeant or lieutenant or colonel or whatever attached to it, maybe the men or women may be a little more freer to connect because they won't feel the pressure
Yes.
of having someone of a higher rank over them. They're there to give and get help, but if they feel that there's someone that has a higher rank than they, maybe that might quash the ability for them to really deliver the goods like you'd want them to.
Yeah, the way I approach that, at least with the vets that I've worked with, and as a young child, I was told the old concept of nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Yeah. And I see that that's being integrated at the Federal Health Center and the other VAs. I have a daughter that works at Hines, so I get that message too. So if we can transmit the concept and make them feel that actually the VA does care. Like this young man that I brought over to the VA, they said, here, come on, we'll take you right over, and they take him over and they'd let him around. And then about 2 weeks later, I talked to him, said, this is really neat. They said the doctor would call him. He said, the doctor called me. I had an appointment. I went, and they looked at my kidney and all that sort of thing. I thought, hallelujah. And this guy was really worried, and his wife was more worried than he was, rightfully so.
That was very nice. That was, that's a point of caring. There you go. I mean, even the phone call when the doctor called him, that's a point of caring.
Yes.
If he felt that no one would understand him, you've got a doctor that's calling you, making an appointment or wanting to hear a little bit more of what you have to say. Everybody wants respect. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be understood. But being that it's the military and not civilian life, again, I have to say is that the veterans would feel rank may be an issue. So I don't know if you've run into that, if anybody's run into rank being an issue.
I'm involved with the Glenview Marines, and so we have Glenview Marines come up to the meetings that are up at the Lovell Hospital, particularly in the case of the PTSD troops. And to get the Marines to come, these are now no longer on active duty, they're basically retired, but to get them to come, they said, well, what do you do? I said, just go and talk.
See?
Just listen. Listen to what they're saying. Get a connection. And now what you find, it's really interesting, you don't know this, but somebody doesn't show up. And then the vets that are in the meeting as a normal rule, they say, where's Smith or where's Jones? Or they want to know because they've gone 2 or 3 times and the vets have made that connection and they want to find out what happened because they had that ability to be treated like a normal human being, and it was a step. It was a kind of mini step that was taken there.
It's if you come with me, I'll go with you. But if you're not going to show up, maybe I won't show up. But if you've got somebody, at least that's that caring, they would probably say, well, I'll go back to his house and find out. Maybe he didn't have a ride. Maybe they didn't connect before they went to the meeting, but since the meeting they probably were able to meld together.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
We are a community. We are a large community of VA and active duty veterans. We are a community of PTSD veterans, and you just have to come to the hospital and see that you're not alone. And we have a number of specialty programs, as well as these advanced programs. We have programs that people can do. We have a wonderful residential live-in for 7 weeks and go home on weekends. And it's a chance for young vets to feel that they're back with people who understand them. We know that vets need to see the eyes of other veterans.
It's true.
They don't want to just talk to Doc. They want to see that they can tell by looking at the eyes of several other veterans whether this is a welcoming place and whether there's something there for them. So we invite veterans to come and give us a chance to
I think also
bring them in.
We need to tell the viewers that how far back, Colonel, would you say the men coming in to Lovell who needs assistance, how far back would it be? Vietnam, are we looking at that?
Well, I've seen them come in from Iraq, Afghanistan. So there's young vets as well as interesting. I'm also involved with a vet group down on Dempster, and Tuesday morning at a Dunkin' Donuts down there, there's a cadre of vets that meet. I would put a plug for anybody who's in that area. If you're available on 9 o'clock on Tuesday mornings, go to the Dunkin' Donuts shop on Dempster, just west of Waukegan on the south side. It's a melding pot, and the way I would describe it is I have nothing in common with any of these men, but I have everything in common with them. I don't know how else to explain it,
Yeah.
because the experiences I had were mine, the experiences you had were yours. But I had the same experience he did.
See?
He's a vet, he understands. We have kind of the genre, the background. So these groups are kind of self-help. Well, that would be an example of people coming in and they are accepted. Anybody is accepted. So I find that's true at the VA, at the FHCC. And I would suspect the same thing at Hines, but I'm more familiar with Lovell.
Of Lovell. Well, it's more like a 12-step program, because if you need some assistance, you've got a buddy to call or whatever. So that's.
Yes.
But this thing with the hospital, the Chicago Medical School, that's very, very intriguing. How long has that been going on, by the way?
We're now in our 4th year.
Wow, 4 years.
And
Wow.
I don't take full credit for this at all. I really give the credit to the vets. That's where I think the power is. My connection within the medical school is Dr. Behe. I don't know if you know Dr. Behe or not, and Dr. Record, who's another one. But I think that the beauty of it is that the school made the decision that they were going to put a curriculum to whatever we were doing was have an impact on the students, and they went through the steps to make that part of the curriculum. So I'm now on a hook to go find the troops to show up to be able to do this, which I'm very happy to do,
Yeah.
because you mention it and they all say, okay, sign me up.
Yeah.
And the other part is they show up. That's a big deal.
That's
It
big.
is.
Some of your viewers may not know about Rosalind Franklin University of Medicine and Science. The Federal Health Center is a university hospital, and the medical school is Rosalind Franklin University of Medicine and Science, formerly called the Chicago Medical School. And this shows a $50 million
Wow.
addition to the medical school for science and research. Incidentally, this project is one of our 17 research projects, 6 of which we've completed, 7 of which we have in process right now, and another 5, which is we want to study this. We want to be able to not just know that it works because we see it. We want to write about it, and
That's
we
right.
want to have some metrics that show that veterans, what happens to the veterans that participate? How is it their esteem is boosted? How is it, what kinds of learning do they get from this experience of being invited to a medical school?
We're doing that, that study is being done in concert with Rosalind Franklin. I mean, it's not just the FHCC. So Dr. Behe is gathering data, we're gathering data, and we're really quite defined as to what the questions are being asked, et cetera, so that there's a thread that goes from year to year. It's really quite impressive.
From what I'm reading on this, you have an abstract of what this is. You've got completed works, works that are in progress, proposed studies, collaborating institutions, Rosalind Franklin University, Hines VA, Northwestern Yellow Brick Trauma Program, Northwestern Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. These are really working institutions that are doing their best to be able to, help. And that's a very big word, is help.
I would concur with I think you're recognizing the magnitude of
Yeah.
the institutions.
Big.
But I'm taking the position that the students care, the vets care,
Yeah.
the staff at the medical school, the staff at FEC. That's what makes it work. It's not just because we structure it that way. It's because we really want to have the vets participate. We need the vets to participate to help the medical school, and the students are looking. They just want to soak that up.
Is the veteran there just for like one semester, and or is he rotated?
Well, each year, when we hold these panels,
Yeah.
we'll have 50 students. So those students will rotate. But
yeah.
usually we'll get somewhat the same cadre of the 50 names I've got. We'll rotate them. And part of it is I want to make sure that all those men and women have the opportunity to participate because they want to. I think that's very, very important because they then walk out the door and then they tell somebody else about what they're doing.
Yep.
And so the word gets passed around.
That's the best way of advertising is word of mouth. I mean, you could have signs up all over the place. People, they look, but they don't read it or comprehend and they go by. But if someone talks to you directly,
Yes.
then somebody's listening because they're asking questions.
Well, they'll stop me in the hall going through
See?
the hospital and say, hey,
Take
I
your
want
mother out.
to sign up. I said, okay, give me your name,
That's
I'll go.
good. That's good.
You've had Angela Walker on your show.
Absolutely.
To put this in another context, this very large, very successful program is part of the advanced phases of therapy for PTSD. Angela is a remarkable musician. We have a number of musicians artists who come through our programs
Yep.
and then go off and do expressive arts.
Yeah.
Angela is now president of the Rotary Club.
Yep.
And she's moved from having some difficulty herself to really now being a defined and articulate community leader and artist.
She was very quiet when we 1st met. Very quiet.
That's quite an interesting development to
and
see how
very-
Angela is. I mean, it's
and very
miraculous.
reserved. And I had her on. I was to her house. We made food. I gave to her. She gave to me. And eventually she really is what she is today because we connected one-on-one, and we kept it up. And she was on the program many times, singing, and she got me people to come on the program, and I said, that's good. So I enlisted her help without her even knowing that. But I could see that there was, I'm the mother of 7 children. They're not babies anymore, but I'm telling you, I could see where she needed some assistance, and I was very willing and able to do that for her. And I'm very proud of her because she's delightful. She's full of energy. She energizes everyone around her.
Yeah.
And because people have made comment, she was very quiet and very reserved. And now she's not like that at all. She gets out here and she laughs and she sings
Yes.
beautiful.
That's
And
really quite a transformation.
Yeah.
Just like the 56 men and women
Look at that.
in that program, the expressive therapy, and Angela's a leader, but
See?
there are many others. There's the Voice of Veterans Band. Some of those men have been with me on closed circuit TV. We also have been, this is just another example, we've produced DVDs on moral injury. In this
Okay.
DVD, there's 6 or 7 of our veterans who 4 years ago would have not said anything about their situation, and now they're out producing
Look at that. See?
publications. We have books written, we have the creative arts, we've got leadership in the medical school, we've got leadership in the community, and we have men and women who are participating in several DVDs to educate the public about things like moral injury.
Well, this, Dr. Bear, will only be the first of many more for you to come on the program. Colonel, you're certainly welcome. Dan, absolutely. You'll have
There's
to.
a picture of one of the classes or one of the sessions we had at the medical school, And these are pictures of all the vets, and they're all smiling.
That's the best part.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, when they're
And they,
smiling,
they
that's
weren't
good.
smiling 2 years or 4 years ago.
Hard, very difficult.
So our job, in a way, is to coach. We want our vets, and we want our students. We want everybody to get ahead. And I want to just brag a minute.
Go ahead.
3 of the young docs that were with us 2 years
2
ago
years
have now moved ahead, along with 6 or 8 others,
Wow.
and they are leaders
Wow.
in psychology. We've got Dr. Saccone, who did an eye tracking study. We're using a special approach to studying how people's eyes move to assess levels of PTSD. She's now regional director of the Wisconsin Penal Association in Wisconsin. We've got Natalie, who did a study on combat vets and their marriages, because there's a much higher percentage of violence in
Oh.
combat vets and their marriages.
Yeah.
And you may remember Natalie, she's now in private practice right down the road. She's doing great.
Nice.
And her study is being prepared for publication with
Wow.
me. We have
See?
Dorothy, who was here with us, and Christine, who are doing eye tracking studies. Dorothy has now finished her doctorate, and she's moving strongly, and that study will be
Terrific.
prepared for publication.
Terrific.
Dan and I are submitting a paper for publication on his study. Your role here, by highlighting
Yeah.
veterans and highlighting our services, helps build esteem not only in the veterans, but also in the students and staff to
Oh,
to-
I'm happy to do.
do work.
Sure.
We need to, let the public know that people with good intentions and the right professionalism are there to help them. They need to know that. And the families too. Everybody suffers when you have one person that is having a difficulty. So, you are helping not only one, but many in the family. We don't have much time left. Look, I don't know where this hour is gone, but please, you are all invited back. Dr. Bear will connect again to have you on the program. If you have anything up and coming,
Let me just brag one more time.
sure.
We have 4 veterans who are producing research studies that are going on, that were veterans. One has served in the Navy 5 years. Dan was in Afghan. We've got Jock, who was a Marine in Iraq. We have Brianna, also in the Navy, and Cassandra, who's now a captain in the Army. They all have, through their time at Level, contributed to science and psychology and gone on to take roles in leadership. And we're so proud of having veterans move into professional roles through our work at Level.
Please have them on. Please. I leave it up to you. you my emissary, please invite them on, and we'll make a time limit. Well, I don't know what else to say except we have had a wonderful evening. I hope that this has helped some of you that are watching the program, and of course you all know this goes on my video and my YouTube, and then the world knows. But if you are the first to know, thank you, and congratulations, and we welcome you to participate in some of the works that Level has. And of course, as Dr. Bear suggests, just come in the door, mention his name, and they will be able to help you with whatever you are in need of and direct you to whatever location you need to go to. So, and I want to take this opportunity. Thank you so much, Colonel, for coming.
pleasure.
Colonel Chris O'Dell, military. O'Donnell, I'm sorry. Marine, retired, and Dan Perez. Were you Afghan or?
Afghanistan.
Oh, Afghanistan. Okay. Army.
Army.
Okay.
Army.
Well, Army's okay. And last but not least, forever, Dr. Bear, for your wonderful, outstanding leadership and help to everyone, which is greatly needed. Thank you. Thank you for coming and participating.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful evening and a very safe week. Good evening.